morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for day 2 of our celebration of running in Coconino County. I'm super excited because, so if you didn't join us yesterday, we had Alvina Begay join us, 3-time Olympic qualifier, fabulous person. She talked to us about her career in running and what it means to be a pro, and she's a registered dietitian. She gave us all kinds of great advice. We did record that, so if you missed it, we'll make sure we get that recording out to you. But the real reason why we're here is twofold. We're here because we want to celebrate our Coconino County running communities, wherever they may be. And we also want to celebrate the fact that CCC is starting their first cross-country team. The inaugural team is hitting the trails this coming fall of 2021. So we're doing this series because we want to get people excited about it. And yeah, so that's why we're here tonight. I'm going to be introducing myself for each of these webinars. So if you joined us yesterday, and if you plan to continue joining us, you're just going to remember my name, no problem. My name is Megan Remington. I am our community education coordinator here at Coconino Community College. And our community education programs are what are sponsoring this series this week. And we are so fortunate that we've been able to put together this just absolutely fantastic slate of presenters, and I will get to their introduction in just a moment. But before I do that, so first of all, to make sure that you all know, I really want to make sure everybody is able to interact with us. We want you to put comments in the chat. Make sure that when you're looking at your chat box, there's the option to say all panelists, or flip it over to say, I think it's all panelists and attendees. Make sure you make your chat forward facing so everybody can see it, because we want to know who you are, we want to know why you're here, and we want to engage with you. Or if you have questions, you can go in the Q&A, and we will be answering questions throughout. So if you have questions for any of our presenters, you'll be able to just drop them on in there, and then I'll let the 4 of you know if we've got questions that come up, so you don't have to be actively following the chat box or the Q&A. So, and if you do know anybody who still wants to register, we'll make sure we get that link over to everyone so you can, so people can keep on registering. We've still got 4 more webinars after tonight. But the whole reason why we're here is because we have 4 very, very important people to the Page High School cross-country teams. And I'm super excited to have them with us tonight because it was brought to my attention that Page High School has an incredible legacy of success in cross country, and we felt that that was worth celebrating. So who we have tonight, we have Tim Martin, Theo Martin, Mac Lane, and Otis Manson, and they are the 4 coaches, or some of the 4 coaches. I'm sure there's many people that play a role in the successes, but so Page High School achieved 6 straight state championships in Division III, which my understanding is a record not only for the school, but I believe I saw somewhere that this is a record among all of the divisions. Is that right, guys? Oh, you're on mute. So the six titles that have been won among the 4 of you, that's a record among all divisions, is what I heard. Do you know if that's correct or not?
No, it's not.
I think Hopi has
The national record.
Yeah, the national record. They have like 28
27 or 8.
27 or 28 year streak.
All right. Well, okay, now I know that. But either way,
has 6 right now with the girls program.
Okay. So then in that case, I do want to make sure that I set some context for our attendees, because if you don't know how cross country works, which to be truthful is how I was, because I've never competed in cross country before. So on the high school circuit, these students are running 5,000 meters, which I admit I had to Google and figure out what that meant. It's 3.1 miles or a 5K if you've ever done a distance like that before. And the scoring is not just individual. You're not looking at, oh, these students got first, second, and third. That is part of it. But as a team, your goal is to score the lowest point amount. So if you come in first place, you're going to score 1 point for your team. And the team with the lowest number is the team that wins the championship. So to understand why that's such a huge deal, I have some figures here that I've written down. So Division III has 71 teams across the state of Arizona. And to put that into perspective, Division I, the big schools, there's only 41 teams in that one. And Division II, it's 61. So Division III is like, you've got a huge amount of people who are competing on the Division III level. In the North area alone of Division III, there's 19 teams. And those teams stretch from Prescott to Page to Snowflake. I mean, literally the top third of all of the state of Arizona is covered by this North group. And so the fact that Page High School has won so many state championships, or at least, even if not the state championship, they've come real close, is just absolutely astonishing. So I'm gonna throw some numbers out here. So I did not realize that 2020 did actually have a state championship, and I was sad to see that Page came in third. However, they outpaced Shadow Mountain by nearly twice as many scoring points. So it was a really close batch in that top three there. Prior to that, in 2019, there were 228 runners, and Page took the state title with a score of 62. Second place Prescott got completely blown away. They scored 140 points. So again, this is really impressive stuff. So what I wanted to do, and I have more numbers written down here, but I'll kind of hold off for right now. I'm hoping if the four of you could kind of go around and tell us who you are, what year, when you were a coach, or if you are currently a coach for Page High School, and kind of maybe a little bit about your journey. What brought you to this position with Page High School?
I guess we'll start with me. I started out as a volunteer coach in 2005 under Mark Lohman, and Theo was his assistant at that time.
And go ahead and make sure you give your name too.
I'm MacArthur Lane. Most people call me Mac. I was the head coach from 2012 or 11. 2011 to, was it 4 years? 5 years? 5 years. We Otis and I got the streak started, the streak that had happened. But Theo eventually became the head coach. I coached under him for 3 years as his assistant, and then he moved on to pursue a career in what he does now in physical therapy. And then so I inherited the program from him, and kind of that's how I was involved. I got involved, been involved since 2005. So I don't know.
I guess I'll go since I'm next in line. I'm Theo Martin. Been a part of the program for quite a while. Just a kind of a quick note. All three of us ran on the same team in high school, or all four of us. Mac was the first, he's the oldest. He started out his first year running. I think they ended up as I think they're dead last at the state meet. And then the next year they were second. And then the next year, me and Tim showed up and we won that year. Not just us, of course, there's a whole bunch of us guys. And then Otis showed up the next year. And so we all ran at least 1 year on a team all together in high school. And so that's kind of a little bit of background of how our friendship is so tight. And that's kind of how the whole program is. Those teams become so tight that they end up like us. They're going to end up like us, just best buds for the rest of our lives, you know. But anyway, I coached under Coach Lomland, kind of the legendary coach from Northern Arizona. I took over from him in, trying to remember the year, maybe 2007, but I was his assistant from 2001, 2006 or 7. And then I coached till 2010 as the head coach. And then I left to physical therapy school, came back and was just a volunteer coach under Mac for a couple of years. And then I was Tim's assistant coach in 18. And then I took over in 19. And now I'm the current coach. I'm the current cross country coach and track distance coach. So I'll move on.
My name's Otis Manson, and I'm a little bit. I was never a head coach. I was always a volunteer. So I was volunteer with these three. So technically, I was never a head coach. Page cross country has always been part of us through, even we've been done for 20, 30 years. But if we have a lasting impact in our lives, not just running it or even getting winning championships. It helped us prepare us for life, for school and opportunity to work hard, to learn how to work hard. And these three, honest truth, I didn't like running. I never liked running. And then the coach from high school just said, "Hey, you want to come out?" And I didn't join until the end of the year. So I was just putting it off. But we became really good friends, and you start to run for each other, and it's a family. So I kind of changed my perspective of running, and I still have a hard time with running, but I love the competition, and it's just fun to have accountability with these guys and to be part of a team. So
I'm Tim Martin, Theo's twin brother. So again, if you want to take it all the way back, 1989 is when I became a Sand Devil, Running Devil. And that's where we came up with the name Running Devils. We that first group of runners, which included all of us. And we had a saying back in those days, hammer time. So when we would show up, there was hammer time. We'd go out there and just hammer it out and win races for each other. So like Otis said, it's a culture. You're part of a family forever when you join the Sand Devil cross country team. And I run into people all the time and say, "I ran on this team," or "I ran on that team." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know you," because you follow it your whole life. So it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the 2018 coach that won the title. I was officially the coach then, but I've had my little hand in things all the way back to 2001 when I first came out of NAU as a brand new greenhorn teacher and coach. That's when I got into the coaching here as a middle school coach. And then from there, just kind of built up, just helping out the team. And even when I was living in Indiana, I was in constant contact with Otis about coaching and new workouts and techniques and all these things. We traded back and forth ideas, and just, you're still part of it, even though you're 1,500 miles away. And just because, you're part of that culture and that family. So that's basically what I got.
Well, that's awesome. And I really appreciate all of you joining me today, because what we really want to do, and the biggest conversation that's been taking place around CCC Cross Country, is the importance of building a community and making people feel like this is their team and this is their, their ownership, whether they're a member of the team or a community member. So for another piece of context, for anybody who's unfamiliar with the city of Page, so Page is very unique in that it is completely landlocked within the Navajo Nation. It is 24 square miles, and it was actually created because it was land that was traded to allow for a place for people to live while they were building the Glen Canyon Dam. And that was, again, another little piece of information that I had no idea about. But because of that, Page is very, very insular and very, it's so clear to me that the people who live in Page love it and are passionate about being there. So one of the questions I had for you guys, and at this point you're welcome to answer, whoever feels like they have the answer, you're welcome to go across, whatever works best. But when you're recruiting for these teams, I mean, there was one year, oh gosh, which one was it? It was like 2014, where you guys took 1, 2, 3 out of 200 runners, and the top 3 runners were Page High School athletes. Is it hard to get students interested in joining the team, or is it like they see this atmosphere, this group of friends, and they're like, yes, I want to be a part of that?
Was that 14?
Was it 14?
18.
I feel like I wrote this.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe it was.
Shut up.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It was 2018. It was 2018.
I'm trying to make it louder because you're trying to can't hear you very good.
Oh no.
All right, we got it.
All right, Peachy.
I'll start answering that. It is, some years are tough, but to get those kids out, but it's kind of weird. It goes in cycles. I was just lucky enough in that 18 year that I got a group of runners that these guys developed that was just, I mean, their talent and the number of kids that were already at a high level was there already. And but I know that there were years where it was hard to get those kids interested. But I think it's the reputation, because we're kind of like a feeder school, because Page is in the middle of nowhere, and we got all these little communities around Page where some of the kids can choose to go to Tuba City or choose to go to Monmouth Valley or choose to go to the Valley. But I think a lot of the time the kids are like, Page's program, I can run pretty good. I think I'm going to go to Page and see what I can do there to stay the reputation of the running Devils. And so I think we got that on our side where kids are coming in because they know that the quality of coaching is going to be there. Their parents know the history and they want their kids to go there and possibly become amazing runners. And so I think that's one thing how we don't recruit the kids, but they come here on their own looking for that atmosphere, that championship quality atmosphere. So
Wow.
And
That's really cool.
Also another thing is Theo used to be a teacher for the elementary school. He had a running program in elementary school, so we could kind of identify in elementary and middle school who were talented in running. And sometimes and during the summer we train together, and we have summer programs, and kids will just come out, and then you see them and you see how talented they are. And I mean, that's how we don't ever recruit. We just they're just there.
Yeah, kind of got to find them. I kind of piggybacking off what Otis said. That group, the streak, where it started from, like you said, back in 14. This is 8 years prior to that. I started that running program at the elementary school, and like you said, we targeted a bunch of kids, and it was pretty amazing that running program I did it for 2 years before I moved on up to the high school to coach, but we had probably 200 kids out of the 300 kids that went to the school that were in the running program. And we literally, on Friday afternoons, if you showed up to Desert View Elementary, you'd see a continuous circle around the 800-meter loop around the school. And their parents would show up, they'd drag their grandparents to show up, and they'd seriously be doing that. And that group of kids were the kids that were in high school when the streak started. And a lot of those kids were part of that 1, 2, 3 group. And the group from 14 A lot of those kids were in that group. A lot of their sisters were in that group that became like state champs on the girls' side. So that was, that's just one little thing. They don't do it anymore. It's a little sad, but that'd be cool if they got that going again. Because man, that really sparked. We didn't know it at the time. It was gonna benefit, 7 to 8 years later, but it really did.
Wow.
And we have to search, just like any other school. We have to go into the schools and find the kids that have talent, and then try to convince them to come out for cross country. Probably one of the most grueling sports, where you're running 100-degree heat on the first day of practice. So we have the same problems as everybody else.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, and that actually leads me into another question about, I'm sorry, Mac, were you about to toss something in there too?
No, go ahead. Well, let me just say this. Tim said it works in cycles. And back when I first started volunteering in 2005, we had a boys group that had won in 2005. They'd won 3 in a row. And the girls finally won the first one that year. But it was kind of a drought after that when Bowman retired and Theo took over the program. And we were doing, we would have 8 or 9 boys out for cross. And we were like, we need more boys out for cross to turn this thing around. And it took quite a long time, even up to when I started. We had talented runners. It's just that the culture needed to change for that period of time where the boys weren't winning, and they had to focus on doing the right things to become champions. And once that got turned around, and a lot of it was due to Oat, and we were a great pair coaching together. And but once we got that culture shifted, and kids were around the reservation close by would see our runners run, and it's like they said they wanted to be a part of Page High School, and they wanted to get trained here at Page High School. We've been putting kids in the colleges running wise for quite a few years now, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits that of coaching is knowing that the time that we put into a kid, it'll pay for his 4 years of college if that's the direction he wants to go or she wants to go. So we just keep paying it forward as coaches.
That's awesome. Well, and so Carletta has a question, and Carletta, you have perfect timing because it actually ties in very well with the next question I was going to ask all of you. So obviously, Theo, you kind of brought it up that there's a mental game that needs to be played in order to be a cross country runner. You have to kind of find that line between pushing as hard as you possibly can, but not pushing so hard that you flame out and can't finish the race. So what kind of coaching do you have to do to get high school kids into that proper mindset of discipline? And then Carletta's question is, what values drive the coaching style that you choose? And again, this could be, it seems you all have great answers to these questions. So I say, keep doing what you're doing.
I guess I can start on this one too. For me, the first thing I do is when we have the kids, I'm open and honest with them. I lay it all out there. This is going to be tough. This is going to be probably the worst 6 weeks of your life when you first start cross country. But I tell them it's going to be worth it at the end when you're running way faster than when we started. And then I also like to, my coaching style is I tell them a reason for every single thing we do. There's a reason for it, and they know the reason. And then they know my expectation. I tell them what I expect out of them. And then if they meet that expectation, then we all celebrate, because usually the expectation is pretty high. So my style is just open, honest, and give them reasons for why we do things. Don't just say we're running hills today. Tell them why we're doing it, and give them a high expectation and a high goal. And then, we're celebrating almost every hard workout after that. And then the kids want to do it because they want to meet that expectation, the time, the distance, whatever it takes. So, just making it all about them reaching little steps is how I like to go.
Oh, I was just thinking about it. Usually all of us are involved.
Yeah.
We usually have a couple other people that jump in too as assistant or coaches. Usually a little less vocal than us four, but usually like in the past, I mean, we're all coaching like every year. Otis plays bad cop, so he's always on the kids big time, like every single like workout. Mainly it's on the workout days, but he's the bad cop, I guess, bad cop, good cop, and so the other coach is generally good cop, which is he's like trying to try to get the kids not feeling too bad about themselves. Otis kind of just nails them, but they respond. You know what I mean? Like they respond to the bad cop, but they also need that encouragement, which the other coach provides. And so there's Coach Mac is the same way. I mean, he's not the bad cop. He's generally explaining, like Tim was saying, more of a here, this is why you're doing this type of thing. I'm kind of like in the middle, not as crazy as Otis, but yeah, that's kind of our personalities on the coaching style type, as if you want to put it in that kind of perspective. But values wise, maybe I'll let maybe Mac or Odie kind of look at that part of it. So
One of the values that we see in our program is a lot of these kids are raised by their grandparents. So, and they're raised by their grandparents. And what we could do on a value wise, that we could provide them some tools that they could have for after they leave the program, that they are capable of doing hard things. So what that entails is they could do hard things. They could go to school. They could be who they want to be. It's just because Native Americans, we have that stigma that that we have to overcome, all of us. And we just want to give them values for them to live a great life, and that for them to be successful. That's what we all want. We want them to succeed after after they leave our program.
That's awesome.
I think one of the biggest things is, I mean, these guys all hit upon it, but you got to do the work. And as coaches, we had to be there every step of the way, because kids, they're going to look up to you, and they're looking for individuals that are going to put time into them and show them that they are a valued human being. So once you can start doing the work with them, and they know that you're there for their best interest, you can challenge them pretty hard and they'll respond. And if you get a good group dynamic with the team, like these past few teams had a dynamic similar to what we had way back in the day, but it's like brothers from another mother, and you all bleed for each other when you toe that racing line. So we tried to instill that with them, and most of us ran at college, and we had pretty good experiences there. So and that's what we want for them, is to be able to have the similar experiences that we were able to have through running.
Speaking of hard things, so I'm curious, because you mentioned that a lot of these kids can choose what school to go to, and so obviously a lot of them aren't in Page proper. What are some of the distances that these students are looking at to travel to just to get to school, and how does that affect putting together practices, planning around the schedules and the abilities of these students when they might not be 5 minutes away?
Yeah, I mean, we've had kids that live 60 miles away.
Wow.
So they ride an easy hour just to get to school, and then they ride at least an hour on the bus to get home. And so the range that comes in the page and the range of runners we get is, I mean, some of them I live right across the street from school, all the way to Inscription House area where it's a bus ride is maybe even over an hour, hour and 15, hour 30 sometimes with all the stops. So,
Wow.
and it makes it pretty difficult on some of those kids when they got to go wake up at 4 in the morning, get the bus, come to school, go to school, work out really hard, and then ride the bus home. They get home, they eat, they go to bed, they wake up to do the same thing. So, so that takes a physical toll on a lot of these kids. And some years, every single kid is from out on the reservation, miles away. And in other years, there's a good mix of kids that live in town and out on the res. So yeah, we got a big mix. I'm not sure right now.
I'll give you an example right now. And last year also, I have a girl that lives in Shanto right now, and that's technically out of the bus range. So her parents drive her about 15 miles to the last stop. She jumps on there and she does that every day. And then I actually had a runner last year that lived in Tuba City, and her mom or grandma would give her a ride to the closest bus stop, which was over by Gap or Cedar Ridge. She'd jump on there and ride the bus, and she'd do that every day. And
Wow.
so that's pretty, and so that's because they want to be in Page and run for Page.
And the one thing also is during the season, we also did a run in the morning. And these kids who lived out on the reservation, they did the run also, because everybody else was gathering at at the high school, and you know, they all wanted to be held accountable for being a team, for being on that team. So it was all on that. It was a credit to them and them being responsible.
Wow, man, I can't imagine. I grew up down in the valley, and my school is down the street from me, and I have a lot of respect for the athletes that you guys that you coach. I had a chance while I was doing my research leading into this, where I watched a little video clip from, and I do not remember his name, but he was interviewed after he won 3rd place in 2019, I think. And the interviewer was asking him, you know, what kind of mentality do you have going into this? And he was saying that that he had felt like the team was being written off by people because a lot of the older athletes had graduated. And he just looked right at the camera and he was like, okay, lace up, let's go. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is a high school kid. That's some character right there.
I can add one more thing in there is a lot of these kids too that live way out there, they will, for the season, will live with relatives in town. So they actually move just for the season to Page, so they don't have to do that bus ride. Then a lot of them on the weekends will stay with kids just so that they can go to weekend practices or meets. And so it turns into like again, it turns into a family. Kids are living with other people just so that they can be part of, not miss practices and make sure they're keeping up with everybody else. So yeah, that's a big shout out to all those families that take in other kids. Some of them are not even their kids, but they've taken them in as another child and take care of them. And it's pretty awesome. There's a couple here that do that too. And so that's how it kind of works around here, just because the distances are so far. So.
Right. That is so amazing. And I love the community aspect of it. I love that. I mean, and just knowing that, you know, with the 4 of you, you've known each other this whole time. And I am going to come back to that. But first we do have a question in the chat. So Grace on here says her brother, Andy White, ran with the Martin twins. And she added a little smiley face.
I remember Andy.
So Grace wants to know, what is your coaching strategy when a runner needs a different level of training from their teammates? For example, a runner runs their heart out during practices, but come the meet, they're flat, whereas the other runners seem to be able to excel in both workouts and races. How do you meet the different training needs of each runner?
So what we believe is recovery is more important than the hard workout. So we want the kids to recover. So we don't want to overtrain. So we do low miles, but our workouts are hard. So we want to look at each person and we'll just identify each person in the workouts that have a hard time. So we identify them. If they're struggling, we'll cut them back a little, and that's, we'll just have a little chat with each kid and say, hey, you got to go to sleep a little bit earlier, you got to hydrate, or you got to eat properly. So we just look at the runner individual, not on that, and just see how they're feeling.
And then you have to, like, you got to hold them back too, because they all want to just be there, like going after it. So you really have to say, hey, today you're running behind this guy all the time. Or today you only go 6, you're not going 8. And you're only going to go 7:30 pace or 8-minute pace. And so, yeah, we totally believe it's all recovery. You can hammer all day and be flat, but we like on easy days to be easy and the recovery. And that's how those kids did. Like, was it Grace who's saying, we almost cater to almost every kid differently, depending on where they're at. And so go into a race, they're most of the time they're pretty fresh unless we want them to be there. And we do that a lot too, so that when we have to race a bigger, more important race, that we all pop on a different weekend. So yeah, we cater kind of like every kid and where their level is.
And I hope that answers Grace's question, because maybe the person she's asking it for is working out a little bit too hard. Yeah. So if they're racing, because what it turns out to be is they're racing every other day in the workouts. And then come race day, they've already run 2 or 3 races during the week. And of course they're going to be flat. So they might want to look at what pace they're running, and they might want to hold back a little bit more during the workouts, just to see, they got to work here and there, changing little things, see what works best for them. And hopefully they start seeing better results on race day. But yes, you could definitely be running too hard on workout days, and it's taken away from the performances on race day.
And she said you answered it perfectly, so you nailed it.
Yeah, and a lot of our workouts and the techniques we have it from the 2 best programs in the country right now, from NAU and BYU. So we just look at how they train us, and we just feed off of that, and we tweak it a little bit for high school. So I mean, we have the experience from those collegiate coaches.
So on the topic of community, so obviously, the 4 of you, and really it sounds like the lineage of coaches and assistant coaches at Page High School is pretty solid. Like, it seems like everyone knows one another. Everybody is at least familiar with what they do and how they did it. But I'm curious, do you receive a lot of community support? And what does that look like? Is it meaningful to the city of Page to see these teams with such success, do you think?
Oh, that might be a sour subject.
Oh, no.
Because, through our running families, we get a lot of support. But when it comes to community-wise, it might not be as great. But we have like the newspaper, or the radio station. They really covered us pretty well the last couple of years. But as a community-wise, there's other things that they like more, like basketball. So it's tough. It's tough to compete with with when the basketball program is really firing on all cylinders also, we'll see a little bit of a decline. We generally can weather the storm and come out of it pretty good with the kids that we have. So I'd say our running families, if you're a part of a family that has a runner in our community, and all the alumni that used to run, that's a tight-knit group. So not like, well, I hear things about Flagstaff. Flagstaff just sounds like they rally around their running programs. You know, we're kind of jealous about that, but but we have a good, you know, with the people who support us, we're pretty happy with that. So I don't know if any of the other guys feel differently on that one. So.
Well, and I would add on to it, you know, if you could have a form of community support, what would that look like? Is it people giving money to support travel? Is it them showing up at a meet? I mean, what does it mean to be a fan for a cross country team?
I think as far as being a fan, we have the fans. Because when we run our home meets, a lot of people generally show up and, you know, they want to watch our top runners perform, and they know what kind of special effort that they're going to be able to see on race day. But as far as other things go, kind of it's along the similar lines of what Coach Martin was saying. The community as a whole isn't terribly involved with the program, and like everything we do is it's more in that running community tight-knit group. But you know, a lot of people really don't know who I am or recognize me, and like I like to golf, so I hear talk out on the golf course once in a while. But you know, I hear stuff like, "Oh, they won again." Like it's like it's not a big deal, but you know, I would just like them to know that, you know, there's a lot of effort that goes into being as good as we are year in and year out.
Oh yeah, just the number of people that these students are competing against. I mean, truly, when I looked this up, I was like, this is so much more than, you know, like an elementary school on a circuit with 12 teams. Like this is the whole entire state. I mean, it's just mind-boggling the kind of success that you guys have seen in such a small and in many cases challenging to reach community for people. Like it's the perfect storm of success, really.
One thing about the community is they expect us to win. It's kind of even before the season or even during the summer, they expect us to win. That's what our culture is. And you know, we kind of emphasize with the kids that it's not about everybody else. It's about you and your team. And that outside noise, just do what you need to do to prepare yourself for that mental aspect and physical aspect of running cross country.
Mm-hmm.
And then support, it's kind of cool. When I was coaching that one year where I'd travel, but you'd show up to these places pretty far from Page, and we'd have fans there. They'd come in and they're ex-runners and they'd just show up. They travel there to show up just to watch us run. And usually they're ex-runners. Mm-hmm. I didn't know them, but they're there, they're watching, they're cheering for Page all out. So it's cool. We have, you know, fans far and wide. I think even we went to California and there were Page people there watching. I was like, holy cow, where did you guys come from? So they're out there, and we're just spread out.
That's super awesome. All right, so I do have, okay, so I'm going to go back to our chat here because, so Karen, going back to the question about how you work with different levels of athletes. So Karen pointed out that there could be a mental aspect to this question. So, and Karen, I'm hoping that I'm clarifying this the way you mean it to be. What do you do when you've got, you know, the athlete who just gets it versus the athlete who just doesn't seem to quite click, that effort level, that necessity for work that leads to championships? How do you address something like that?
I probably can address that a little bit. We train out the reason why these teams are so successful, especially the streak. And then back in our day, also, every good streak or good team has the leaders. And when those kids take over their team and make it their own, those leaders appear. And usually there's 2 or 3 leaders that lead that. And a lot of the time, those leaders address that aspect. And we don't have to say you're the team leader, you're the team leader. It just happens when there's a good team, and those leaders on that team, they take care of a lot of that aspect of coaching the kids that do have the mental, maybe some barriers. Great example, just the other day, my senior, Trent Holiday, he was out there talking to a kid. And our other senior, Rex Martin, they were talking to the kid, this kid named Hunter. And he's kind of has a little block with training hard. And so they're out there, like, I'd say probably most workouts are out there telling them, you need to do this, you need to do this, and you can do it by doing this. And then next thing you know, at the last chance meet, the kid qualified for the state meet. And he
Wow.
had about 25 seconds, and now he's in the state meet. So it's just, I'll address that if it needs to be, but the leaders take care of it for the most part.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it means a lot more to the kids when they're keeping each other in check. It's a little different than a coach coming in, even though that you do have to do that sometimes. But I think it's when that senior or that junior that's super good that they look up to goes to them and talks to them one-on-one. That's way more power there for the kids to make those switches.
And sometimes when you come into a season, you have a new team, you have a fresh new group. One thing you kind of emphasize is, hey, we'll lead you for the first couple weeks, and then you could tell each what runner is going to be the leader. They'll establish themselves. They'll establish a trust in us, and then the other runners will trust in the leaders on that team.
And speaking of the leaders, this kind of leads into Paul's question on here. So he wants to know, how important is the 5th runner, and what tactics are used to keep a tight group during a race? And when you say leaders, I think to myself, are these the guys that are out in the front of that group kind of setting the pace for everybody, or does it tend to vary?
No, the 5th runner is probably the most important runner on the team, on any team. And a lot of times it could be your 5, 6, and 7. Any given day, they could be your 5th runner. So what worked well for us was having a deep team. And for this streak, we were probably 12 to 13 runners deep. And our JV team was winning as many races as our varsity teams. And at any moment, if somebody got sick or somebody was sidelined with a small injury, we could bump up a couple guys from the JV team, and we trusted that they knew what they needed to do to win a race or whatever, as far as the team aspect. So I think that's one of the great things about all of our programs at any different times that we were coaching is, the team aspect was always one of the most important things. And, once everybody could buy in the team comes first, and then, the fold gets bigger and everybody starts contributing in different ways. Even kids on the JV teams, that they end up pushing the kids that are right in there, your 5th to your 9th runners, because at any time you could have one of them step up, or you need them to step up. So, we always preach at workouts, that this group needs to be tighter, or for the leaders, it's the 5, 6, 7, 8 man, 9 job to stay closer to the 2, 3, and 4 runners. So, and we always believe the power was in the pack, and that the smaller gap we could get 1 to 5, that the better off the team was going to be.
And just for clarification, it's the top 5 runners who are scored for the final score, correct?
That is correct. You
Okay.
rate 7, but you score 5. So if a runner is having trouble, then a lot of times your 6 or 7 runner needs to step up, and they need to be aware of that during a race. If somebody's struggling, that hey, I'm the next man up, and I need to start moving so that our team will continue having success.
Wow. Well, we have a little less than 10 minutes left, so I have one more question for you. And this is a question that I'm asking in one form or another to each of our presenters. So obviously with CCC starting an athletics program, specifically cross-country teams, from the perspective of high school coaching and seeing the value of athletics for these kids in Page, what value do you see about there being a community college running team in this regional area that suddenly becomes an option for your athletes?
So one thing about Coconino Community College program, Native Americans have a hard time coming off the reservation. So now they could be a lot closer to home and more comfortable with being close to home and have that support from home, because a lot of Native Americans have a hard time going off the reservation, and they're not adapted to living the city life or even training in a city, or because there's a lot of trails here. So going from here to Flagstaff, I mean, all you're doing is running on trails in Flagstaff, and all you're doing is running on to pavement if you go somewhere else.
Right.
And that's the one thing that really they don't have to go from. It's a lot easier transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that came up yesterday when I was talking to Alvina, because she grew up in Ganado and she went to ASU, and she that was one of the things she mentioned was, wow, this was a culture shock. So that's great to know, though, that that's an opportunity for your students that they might not have seen as an opportunity. So that's super great. I don't have, oh yeah, and Coach Hunt is on here tonight. And he said, thank you for your time and insights. And he looks forward to speaking with you in the future, because Coach Hunt he's hitting the ground running, pun definitely intended. We're really excited to really, bring all of our communities together with these. I can't see anything because my glasses are all reflected. We're so excited to get to know our communities better through these programs. And I appreciate your viewpoints and your perspectives. And I enjoyed this talk so much that I actually didn't even end up giving my spiel to everybody about the programs and how they can support them. So everyone just needs to know that I will send an email about that because we do have lots of great ways for people to get involved with CCC Cross Country. And we want to see that from all across Coconino County. Do any of you gentlemen have any closing remarks before we say goodnight to everybody, or anybody who has a question yet?
I got a little something here. I just want a little shout out, because I think a lot of our success here that we learned the love of the sport came from the original coach, which was Coach Mark Lone. He's the one that kind of bring the spark to Page. Before Coach, I call him Coach. Before Coach, there was no titles here. But the talent was here, and he kind of came in here, and he brought that his coaching style, and it clicked, and it was exactly what this place needed. And from that point on, that's where we got 17 boys state championships and 11 girls. Then after that, it's just year after year of great coaching here is what we've got to credit. Started with Coach Loman, and then I went to Coach
Trap.
Trap,
Zoom trap.
and then my middle school coach, Coach Murray. They're all NAU grads, and I'm an NAU grad, and Theo, and then Mac, he BYU, but we're battling right now. But just wanted to shout out. I mean, I think it comes from just the coaching and the love of the sport is why we have this program we do.
Every year we have a motto for our team. Every motto, it differs from year to year. But the main motto for our program is respect the past and represent the future. So they'll understand that, you know, they have a lot of insight from former runners that could help them out, whatever they need. So we're always going to be there for them. We're always going to be cheering for them. So like all of us, some of us aren't coaching, but we're going to make sure our kids are okay. Make sure they're, even when they're college, we talk to them and see how they're doing. And I mean, we're pulling for them all the time. Even if when they leave, they're still a part of you. And we hope that they think they're still part of us.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the CCC team. When I heard about it like 2 years ago, I was like, wow, this is gonna be sweet, because NAU has right now, you know, I don't see a native kid on that team. And NAU is traditionally has at least 1 or 2 native kids on that team that contribute. And right now, maybe we're coming out of high school and they just don't have that level to be on the NAU level. So it's filtering through CCC as getting developed there as a good runner, and then moving on to NAU is probably the next best step for our Native American population out here. Because if you look back through NAU's history, there's always been a Native kid on that team that's done really well. So I'm really, really excited for that. So.
Yeah, all I want to say is, there's a lot of good people training in Flagstaff, and, that's one of the prime locations where even professional runners are training. So the coach there has a great opportunity to develop future talent. And like these guys said, they could contribute to NAU and keep their dynasty going, even though I'll be cheering for BYU Cougars when it comes down to nationals. These guys are asking me about it, but it's all good. So.
Oh, that's right. Was it BYU was the one who took the title from NAU? Weren't they?
They broke their streak.
Ah, come on.
This year they did.
This year they didn't peak them very well, or something happened mentally. They weren't quite ready to.
I'll take 4 out of 5 years for
NAU.
NAU.
They're both really great programs, and they're both developing quite a few awesome distance runners. And one of those kids from Arizona or from NAU is actually an Arizona kid that we used to watch at state meets at D2 level, I believe. And, he kind of came out of nowhere. So the opportunities there for kids if they can get in with a good group of people and a great coach and, have the guidance to continue on from high school that, hey, they could develop into future professional runners for, that might end up wearing the stars and stripes at Olympic Games or something. So, that's always kind of the end goal. It's pretty hard to reach, but, that it could happen.
Yeah. So speaking of competition, the state meet is this weekend. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So we all know now we need to be watching and cheering for the Sand Devils. And I know I'm going to look forward to that in the future, because I am very endeared to this team now that I know so much more about it and what it means to the students and to the community. And gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to literally gather together in a room and set up chairs. Like, I cannot thank you enough for giving us this time tonight. And I mentioned this
all the
time.
We're all brothers here.
That's awesome. Well, and I mentioned it yesterday with Alvina's talk that the reason why these talks are free is because everybody volunteers their time for it. So So again, we appreciate you so much. And with that, we have hit 7 p.m. on the dot. So, so thank you so much. Best wishes this weekend, Coach Martin. And I'll look forward to watching for another Sand Devils victory.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good luck, Coach Hunt.
Yeah.
All righty. Have a great night, everybody.